Hey and welcome to another one of the Tech Geeks videos. Today we're going to be talking about how to extend your internet connection to multiple properties. Over the last few years I've done many videos on how to extend it from one building to another. So today I thought it would be a good way of showing you how do I extend it to multiple buildings. We call this point to multipoint. I'm going to be using my trusty Gen 2 Starlink over here, but this doesn't matter what connection you've got, as long as you've got a spare Ethernet connection, so an Ethernet port on your router, or whatever device your internet service provider has given you, then you can extend your Wi-Fi to multiple buildings. So before we get going too much, I just want to set a few things right so that we know what we're doing. What we're looking at here can take us up to about 5 kilometers. The further the distance, obviously the slower the speed. If we're going to connect multiple buildings at different distances, then realistically the speed you're going to get between all of those buildings is going to be the speed that you get on the furthest link, i.e. the slowest one, which in all of the instances here should still be pretty good. And at 5 kilometers, if you're using the right equipment, you still should be able to get about 100 megabits a second. One of the other things we need to be aware of is obstructions. We need to have a clear line of sight. That means from one building I should be able to see the other building. I know at longer distances, between 3 and 5 kilometers, that's going to be probably quite difficult visually, but you cannot have any other buildings, hills, dense foliage, forestry in between. You need to either get above it, in some instances you possibly can get below it, or you're going to need to cut a little bit of a way through it to make that actually work. You also need to be aware that wireless does not travel through things like metal very well. So why are we doing this? We are actually connecting buildings together on the outside. So we're putting one of these devices on the outside of each. We're creating a link between the two, and then we're going to loop down into a wireless access point or something else like that. And depending on what we get to the video, I might be able to show you a little bit of that, or at least show you a computer connected where you can then connect on another device in that building. There are a lot of ways of doing this. Today I'm going to be doing this with Ruijie equipment. I love this. Very simple out of the box. You get free cloud management, no software to install, and you get 3 years of warranty. Everything that we're talking about today is outside ready. I will talk a little bit about drip loops. I'll show you how to stow the cables nicely and neatly so that you don't get any water ingress into these. But all of these will work perfectly, especially here in our Australian climate. So we're going to start from our center point, and we're going to be using this. This is the Ruijie EST450G. This is a 120-degree antenna. It's got the transmitter and radio built into this, and this will connect up to about 16 buildings. Obviously, the more buildings, the slower the speed overall, but this should be able to be capable of over 500 megabits a second. So it's probably going to be faster. It's certainly going to be faster than my trusty Gen 2 Starlink over here. And it's going to allow us to extend out. I would imagine you probably want to have cameras in other buildings. Maybe you've got an Airbnb there and you want to give some internet access for people that are staying in there. Or maybe you've got farm buildings, you've got milk sheds, all of those type of things that you maybe wanting to collect electronic equipment up to. So we're going to be starting with this device on the back, and have a quick look as we start to put this together. You have this knuckle joint which allows us to mount this onto a pole. You get a metal zip tie with this. We're going to just use some plastic ones so I can show you how it is, and once it's in place, this allows us to give this type of directional management to it, because it is important to get these lined up. So we're going to start with powering this, and there's multiple ways of powering these. These can actually be powered by 12 volts. In the bottom here, we've got some options here for where do we have our 12 volts in. We've also got the ability for 24 volts PoE and 48 volts PoE. 48 volts PoE is what our standard PoE switches that may be doing your access points or your cameras are running at. But we do need to connect our Ethernet cable and a PoE injector. So what is PoE? Well, PoE, let's take this as a PoE injector. It's going to have our mains power plugged in one side. So I might plug that in like this. We're going to take a connection from our router. Let me find another Ethernet cable that I've got down here. Maybe this is going to be my short cable here. And this is going to plug in. In my instance, I've got a Starlink Gen 2. So if I reach back here, I've got my Ethernet adapter that I need to be able to get an Ethernet port with my Starlink. that would be my port out. If you've got another ISP router, that's what you're going to connect to. That gives us our data. So now we have this connected to our mains, this connected to our data feed, and now we can run up to a 100-meter Ethernet cable from here. So this stays inside, nice watertight, out the way and protected. And then our cable here, I've got a 20-meter Ethernet cable. This is outdoor rated. This has got UV protection on it. That's going to run here from my PoE injector here, and it's going to run out through the wall and out to my unit. Now what we've got, when this is plugged in and turned on, we've got data coming here from our internet provider and power coming from here. This device mixes it, and so down our Ethernet cable, we now have, well, I've got two here anyway, we now have power and data, and this cable can run up to 100 meters away. So this keeps this watertight and out of sun and everything out and out of the weather. And again, you don't need to have a power socket right by this device. So when then on this side here, we have our PoE in, and we take our Ethernet cable and plug that into our PoE port, and this will now power this device up. So in a moment, I'm actually going to do that and plug that all together. You could obviously also plug this into a PoE switch if you have one of those already. So that's what PoE is. It's the ability to put power over up to 100 meters. It mixes power and data together, means that we don't have to have power sockets right by everything that we're mounting outdoor, keeps it safer and gives us more versatility. So now we know what PoE is, we're going to head off and start to set up our first unit, which is the EST450G. Remember, we're going to PoE power this. This has got a 120-degree angle. So I'm going to put it up on this pole here as an example. You're going to mount that up fairly high. I'm going to use the pole mount here, but there is an option for a wall plate. But depending on the size of your building and the distance you want to get, you're probably going to mount this up on a pole fairly high. And we're going to then use that to do some aligning. I'll show you how to do that a little bit more in the app as well, which will give you some more control over getting this properly lined up. So remember, we need to be able to have that clear line of sight. Securely mounted. Some people have asked whether you can put this on maybe a Starlink mount. As long as you've got a pole that your Starlink's on and you've maybe got a clearance of a ½ a meter or maybe a meter between the dish and this device, you should probably be all right. It obviously will give out some RF interference, radio frequency interference, but it should not mess with the dish as long as there's a bit of separation there as well. So I'm just going to head on and let's cable tie this up onto our pole here as our starting point. This is obviously not a permanent install, as you can imagine. This is really for me to be able to show you how this is all going to fit together. And we're going to actually walk through configuring all of this as we go as well, so that we know that it actually works and you know how to do it as well. So there's my first cable tie in, probably going to not fall off at that point. Let's just grab another one in here as well to get this done in place. Right. Now, ultimately, I'm going to need to have this pointing away from us, but just for the moment, I'm just going to do it as a side profile. As you can see with my knuckle joint here, if I move this around, I've got angle that I want. I'm going to probably need this pointing down very slightly just for the way that I'm going to be doing this. So just get that nicely tightened up and in place, and then hopefully that should stay for at least the rest of this video. So I'm going to need that pointing probably down this way, so that we can get to those other items. We're going to first building over there, second building over there, and if we can get it going, going to get a third building running over there as well. So we're going to head on over now to the desk and actually get the cables connected. So now we've got that basically mounted up there, we need to now just connect everything up to get us power and data out to there. So we've got our Ethernet cables, we talked about those before. This is my outdoor Ethernet cable. I've just got a short length, for example. I've got my short patch lead here. I've got my power pack for my PoE injector that came in the box. They do all look a little bit different. Like we said, we showed you one like this earlier. This one's slightly different. Now, like I said, this can be connected to whatever device you want. I'm using my trusty Gen 2 Starlink. I have to have the Ethernet adapter. If you've got a Gen 3 or a Gen 1, then you don't need this. But if you've got a Gen 2 to be able to get your Ethernet port, you need that. But like I said, this can be connected to whatever you want. I've got a TP-Link 4G router here. So it could be on a 4G router service, a fixed Wi-Fi service, it could be on NBN, doesn't really matter what it is. So we can use whatever devices. That was a TP-Link Armada that's connected up, doesn't really matter. So I'm going to connect my data. That's going to come from my router, in my instance, my Starlink. Like I said, could be your NBN, fixed wireless or whatever. That's going to go into the LAN side of my PoE injector. And I'm now just going to need to get some power going on that side. So let me just take the adapter out, plug it into our mains power over here, get our power connected in, and then we're going to have our Ethernet cable. And like I said, this can be up to 100 meters. So this is going to stay inside out the way, and we're going to now run our power cable, well, our cable that's got our data and our power, and we're going to run it out to the device over here. So let me just unfurl that. This is a bit of a rough and ready. It just shows you how it actually all comes together and how we'll be able to do the configuration. So let me just roll this out round here. Actually, let me just bring the cable back to the camera a moment. So I want to quickly talk about a drip loop. Like I said at the beginning, these are fully weather resistant. They're okay to be outside, especially here in our Australian climate. But we do want to think about a drip loop. What is a drip loop? Well, we can see in the bottom here that we've got a good few centimeters that the cable is going to come up into the bottom of the device like this. Just click that into place, and the cover then can go over it. You could put a little bit more filler in the bottom there if you wanted to, especially if you're in a dusty environment. But I want to talk really, like I said, about a drip loop. Many people will just have a cable like this. Some people will have it like this. Some people will have it like this. In all of those scenarios, did you know that water can actually travel uphill? So as the moisture comes onto here and drips down, in this scenario, we're going to keep forcing the water slowly as a capillary action to pass back up here. So what we really want is what's called a drip loop. So our cable comes down and out of the bottom, and we want to come at least back up, part the way up. You see a bit of a twist in my cable, but hopefully you get the idea. You're going to come part the way up the device like this before you come back into the wall. Or before you go off back down to a pole. Why? Because we want that loop to be appearing at the bottom. What's that going to do? Well, it means any moisture that gathers on our Ethernet cable, any moisture that gathers on this is going to be drawn down and forced to drip off the bottom of the unit. By doing that, we're going to protect this, and we're going to stop the ingress, the likelihood of water traveling back up into that connector. So do just bear that in mind if you're self-installing this, that we do get a drip loop. Have so many customers who just have it like this. The water slowly drips down the cable and damages the unit, or there's just not enough loop. Make sure there's a good loop, and you should be well away. Right, so let's get back to what I was actually doing. Okay, so let's get that cable run back out again. So remember, this is up high or outside of our building. In my demonstration here, I'm not going to be able to put a drip loop in because I'm not doing this permanently, but we're going to plug the cable in, see if we can do this on the bottom here, and bring the lid back onto that. Like I said, you could put some extra sealant in there if you wanted to. This one actually has some foam fitting to make it a little bit more permanently sealed. As you can see, I'm having a slight struggle getting that closed because the seal that's in there. But hopefully you get the idea of how that goes. All right, I just had to push that in nice and solid so I could get that lid back on and fixed in place. So, okay, so I managed to get that on. Now we've got that all nicely fixed in place. We've got our angles all set up. Obviously our cable is now giving us a little bit of grief of where that's coming from. Like I said, we normally have a drip loop like this to give us what we're after. So this will now power on. On the side here, probably just bring the camera around in a moment to actually show you this starting up. But we get a set of lights that come on here to show what's going on, and we'll show you that as it actually all connects up. So that's our master device in place, pointing pretty much in the direction we're going to need it to go to connect the other buildings up. So we're now going to take another unit and we're going to pop that down at that end. what we need at that location is power. Like I said, these can be powered if we're using this. I'm going to connect up this one, which is an EST330F-P. This is a little bit of an interesting one. This again can be powered by 12 volts. It can be powered by 24 volt PoE and 48 volt PoE, but it can actually give out PoE. So this is great if we want a wireless access point at the other end and don't want any more power, or even we could just plug two PoE powered cameras directly in to this device. So we just need power at the other location, anything from 12 volts or mains will do. So we're going to plug that in, same process. We're going to use a PoE injector and in this instance a single Ethernet cable. We're not going to obviously got our router down there because this is our central site. We're going to be able to join it up wirelessly between the two. So all we're going to have is a small Ethernet cable down that end. Okay, so we're imagining we're down at our other building. Now, if I was probably doing this in a big setup, I would probably suggest that you do the parts that I'm doing now, which with the software, with all of these items sitting on a workbench somewhere, so you can actually get them talking to each other before you take them out in the field. It will probably just mean that at least you know that everything is functioning and you've got yourself used to how the control panel works, and then all it comes down to is lining these up. So firstly, this one, like I said, this is the EST330. So we're just gonna, again, cable tie. This is pole mounted. We're just gonna cable tie this onto our pole up here as a demonstration of this being our second site. Like I said, this might be 100 meters away, might be 30 meters away, might be 2 kilometers away. Certainly at a kilometer, you're going to get 100 megasecond through this device quite comfortably. And we've got some other videos on the test and performance of those if you're interested to see how they go. So obviously this needs to be pointing back to our master unit. And then over this side, as I said, it's a bit of a rough and ready. So I've just got a power bar hidden away here in the back. Obviously you wouldn't have that. That's going to be inside, like I said before. This is going to be inside your building out the way. This is allowing me to connect up my PoE injector, which I seem to now have dropped on the ground. Oh no, here it is. It's going to allow you to connect up your PoE injector. So that's our power. In this instance, we don't have our data because the data is going to come from our master unit. So I'm going to plug in this to the PoE port. And again, we're going to repeat the process that we did on the other unit. So this is our long length. This is going to come in for the PoE on this side. This is how we're going to power it. Like I said, it could be 12 volts out at this side. And that is now connected up. And I'm just going to put the cover neatly back on there if I can. Just having a little bit of problems. There we go. All right. And then that device needs to be pointing back to the other one. Now, at this point in time, nothing is really happening. These are just talking to each other. They know that they're probably there, but they're not paired up. This is why I would suggest probably at this point you would actually have done it on the workbench before you come out and do this bit. But we can just check on the side that here I've got the system light starting up, so I know this device is actually booting up. So we're now going to get on and going to pair these two together. So now we've got this in place. Like I said, probably best to do it on the bench before you finally put it here, but we're going to run onto the software. So we're going to use the Ruijie app. You're going to have needed to create yourself a Ruijie account and then a Ruijie project inside there. And you need to have remembered your Ruijie project password because we're going to need that in this next bit of configuration. So let's hop on to this. You can do it on a desktop, just easier for me to show you this on a mobile phone. So let's start the app up here. I'll just get some recording going on my phone so you can see what I'm doing. So I've got a test project here that I'm just going to enter now. And my first thing is I'm going to add a new device. So we're going to wander up to this device. I'm going to click on plus here. Now do remember this needs to be connected to the internet. We've got this connected up to our Starlink already. There is a barcode on the back of this device here. Oh, I'm going to knock it over probably when doing it. Let's just see whether we can scan it. There you see it actually scanned the device. Now it gives me the option to add that to the project. And you can see that's now become active on there. Now, there are some ways that you can continue doing this on a smart device, but there are a lot more features and it's a lot easier actually to go ahead and do this on a web browser. So we're just going to jump onto that screen. I'm just going to show you us eWebbing into this, which is obviously connected to the internet, and adding into the second unit. So now we've hopped on over to the computer. This is a project, obviously, that I've already got a few bridges in that you can see there. But the one that we've been working on is that one right at the top, house, the EST450G. That's the one we just added using the app. So what we want to really now be able to do is go into what's called eWeb. So we're going to click its serial number. This is going to show us a little bit more about the device. Clicked up on eWeb there, top right hand side. And this is going to essentially log us on to the unit directly. So at this point, we can now run our scans and some diagnostic utilities if we want to. And it always can show us the link speed it's got to other devices and everything like that. So you can see on the left, it's in that sort of slight salmon color. That shows it's not connected. I've clicked on scan device on the right hand side and you can see our devices listed up already. So all we need to do is put a tick in the box, hit bridge device, and this is now going to start that configuration process of pairing the devices together. I sometimes find just refreshing the page, probably because I'm a little bit more impatient. We can see on the right hand side, it's found the bit of the bridge there, and eventually the one on the left will go, where houses will go to that same color as well and move away from salmon once the bridging has actually completed. So there we go. We can see now that that bridge has now actually completed. And we can actually find some more information about it if we want to. We can see that we've got a strong signal strength there because of the blue bar. But if we go back into here, we don't actually see the device listed. And it would be nice to be able to see that on an ongoing to see how it's actually going. So we will need to add it manually to that control panel in a moment. So I'm just going to quickly refresh the page just to make sure that everything is up to date. Now look, you don't have to add it back into the main Ruijie cloud, but it does make it a little bit easier. As you can see, if I just list on this, although we've got our house shown the EST450 on the left-hand side, on the right, you can see CPE 0. So in this control panel, we don't really see anything useful. We'd have to go into eWeb every single time to see how the links are. So I would prefer to actually add it so it's seen here in the main list. It will just give us some easier reporting and management. So to start with, we just need to find the unit serial number, which I think we can find off the bridge end here, or if you've maybe got it written down somewhere. So let's just click on the device. I think it's on here. I can't remember whether I can see it or not. Everybody's probably shouting at me, I can see it, I can see it. Hang on a minute, let me just click away and I'm just gonna go back onto this. Oh, there you go, okay. Fourth line down, being quite blind there. So let's just copy that. And let's go back to our main Ruijie project. I tend to like to choose wireless bridge. If you've got other devices, access points and stuff in here, it just means you'll just see those bridge devices. So we can paste that in and we're just going to give this a name. This was our milking shed. So again, let's just pop our details in here and hit finish. Okay, so we're not allowed a space. So let's just grab, put a dash in there. Just to get our naming all sorted out and do finished. You can actually see now it's just appeared literally at the bottom of the list as waiting. As long as it's synced, which we know it has, and it's in the bridge, we can now see it will move up to green and it's syncing. It's now picking up the rest of the config, and that will show synced when it's all set up and linked together. So that's how we basically get the first bridge into our setup.
So you can see now that those units are actually connected up. And if we just do a close-up here of the lights on this side, you can actually see we've got full signal strength, which we would expect pointed down that way. And you can see that what I also showed you is that we can look at the vertical alignment on the computer and the horizontal and get a better alignment if we need to. If we head back down to the other end and the other one that we've put online as well, we can actually see here when we come in and have a look on here, we've got again a good signal strength. Now it is possible to join these, like I said before, directly. Let me just try and see if I can do that. So good signal strength. So we can see in our test setup, we've got this connected, we've got great wireless signal. Now you're going to take this out and put that on your milk shed, and maybe you're now trying to line this up by line of sight by what you can see. What we can use now is the alignment tool, and that will allow us to try and get the best signal strength that we can. So again, what we can use is the Ruijie app for that. So let's come out of the project, and you'll come out. Let me just show you on my phone. We would have been our projects here. Let's come out of our projects. As you can see, let's go back out of our project. We can choose Toolbox down here and then use antenna alignment. We need to join the local Wi-Fi of this device. So we're going to go to our Wi-Fi settings. This one here ends in B40A. I had a look on the back of the sticker there, and I've now changed to that Wi-Fi. I can now come back and say OK, and it's going to probably try and log me in, and it's going to ask for my password, which is again my project password because we've added this to the project. So let's just see if this will actually load up for us. Hopefully just take a moment or so and let us log in. So now you can see it's asking for the password. This, remember, is our project password, which hopefully I can type in correctly, as in type in correctly. There we go. So this is now allowing us to connect to this. We have an audio. I don't know whether you can hear that on my phone here, but it's actually giving us an audio indication of what's actually happening. If I was to turn this, and it's probably not really a good example because I am super close to this, I'd have to be pointing this in a wrong direction completely to try and actually make this work. And close up, this is not really gonna work. But you get the idea that we're basically trying to bring this round, and you can hear it was starting to pick up the sound as it got a better and stronger signal strength. You can hear now we're at minus 16 dB. The lower to 0 we are, the better quality that we've got. We can see that we are in a pretty good spot there at 14, and it really probably would want us maybe to change the vertical alignment a little bit more. Let's just see if we can improve that just a little bit more. So that, as you can see, we can use it to get those dB values. The closer we can get those to 0, the better we can. And obviously in my scenario, we've got so much Wi-Fi signal around, it doesn't really show this up, but over a longer distance, the audible sounds that you hear and the visual, you can see in our vertical and our horizontal that we're actually seeing what's actually happening. So our CPE is the one that we're connected to at the moment. If I turn this completely around the other way, you can see minus 28 or minus 36, but then obviously as I start to bring that around and give it a few seconds between each one, you can see that starting to come down minus 27. All right, and probably it's probably something that's slightly out in the vertical. All right, and we get that down to minus 23. So we can use that to do our line adjusting to get the best out of it. So we've got our two locations, our master there using EST450, our milking shed using a 330F over there. We've joined those together up in our test. Those could be probably 3 kilometers apart and work up to about 100 megasecond. What we're now going to do is add in a few extra over here. We've got a second building, a second house we're going to join together with this EST350G. And then just over here, we're going to pretend we're going to add in another warehouse, and we're going to actually use this Air Metro. 2 of these, or this is actually good for a longer distance, so these will carry up to about 5 kilometers. So we're going to add those in. We're going to scan for those using the computer so they're nice and easy to be added. And then we're just going to come back and show you one thing, which is it's great we've connected these together, but what are we going to add on the other end? So we're just going to add on a simple access point to the milking shed that will give us Wi-Fi down there and just show you how that's added in together. So just taking our 350, same process that we've done all the way through. Just going to quickly put its knuckle joint on, and then I'm going to go and cable tie that up to our temporary second home. This is what most people are using it for, to actually join it to a worker's cottage or something like that as well. So I'm going to take this. Interestingly, these come in a 2-pack. So we're actually going to factory reset this so that it will be scannable, because these can be used as a point-to-point as well. So if you just want to do a single connection between 2 buildings. Great, so let's just take these down and put these in place. Grab a couple of cable ties. So again, these just need to be in a 120-degree angle if we're going to be using the EST450. Obviously there are proper metal zip ties in the packet for doing this. I'm just using this to hold our setup nicely and quickly together. Okay, so we've got our Ethernet cable coming out to this. Again, all we need is power. This could be powered by PoE, it could be powered by 12 volt as well. So remember, this could do 24 volts, 48 volts PoE and 12 volts, not PoE, but straight input, maybe straight off your batteries. Just need to plug the PoE injector in at the other end of my cable, which is over here in the corner. But other than that, this cable is just showing us how to link this together for PoE. It's not doing anything else linking this physically to the device over there. Okay, so that device is all booting up. So I'm now going to go and grab our last one. I need to run another cable out for that, but let's just go and grab our Air Metro. So these all work together. Air Metro is its own longer range system that can carry more devices, but these endpoints will work with it as well. So this here is a 460G, which we're going to use. It's got more of a horn, as you can see. It can do a longer distance. We're just going to tie that to a location on the wall over here, just nice and simple. This one has a slightly different sort of knuckle joint, allowing us to give more of an access this way and this way. So as you can see, obviously it's not going to be this low to the ground normally, but I have two access controls in this. So I can angle this more in this direction here, and then again, twisting a button on this side, I can give it more of a vertical angle as well. So let me just tighten that all up. Those are probably roughly pointing in the direction that we need it to. So that last one we've done, I will just need to get a power cable out to so that we can connect that all up and get some power. And then we're just going to jump on the computer and scan for those two extra devices that we have added there, and we should be able to adopt them into the setup, and we will have then created a point to multi-point setup, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment.
Okay, so we're back at our computer, back in the Ruijie control panel, doing the same as we did before. We're going to hit eWeb for the device, the EST450, and we're just going to hop in here once we're logged in, and we're going to do a new scan, and hopefully the two devices that we have added in extra, there we go, our 350G and our Air Metro 460G are there waiting to be bridged. So we're just going to highlight them. You could have just done one at a time if you wanted to, just only because we've got both of those connected together at the same time. You can see here it's all ready to bridge. So let's get that going. And look, this is now exactly the same as we did before. So we may decide to refresh this page in a moment. We will see the other devices start to appear here once the configuration has happened. So it will take a moment because obviously we've got those two extra devices. I'm just going to go back and have a look in our Ruijie Portal. Obviously in our project we're not going to see anything because we haven't added those in yet manually. We can follow the same process. We come back to eWeb just with a refresh, and you can now actually see we've got our three links. We can see our speed or our dB levels. We can do this in the app later, which I'll show you, but obviously we can also see what their signal strengths are, and we can actually use this to adjust them if we want to as well. So that's the sort of start of what we can actually see once we've added these all together in through eWeb. Now all we've got to do is do the repeat of what we did before, which is grabbing their serial numbers to add into the main Ruijie Portal, the project that we've got. So let me just copy this and paste this in. I'm going to do it from the wireless bridges again. So let me just add this in. Oh, hang on a minute. I think I've just managed to grab its model number, not its serial. Let me just go back and get the correct serial number for this. Probably doesn't help when I'm just trying to do this in a rush and talking at the same time. So let's just grab the serial number for that one and pop that in. This was easy, just warehouse. So our warehouse, as you can see, it's dropped to the bottom of the list there as waiting. Let's pick our other one here. I think this was the one that we called Mum and Dad's. So again, let's just add this one in. Remember, we need dashes, or we can't just have spaces between the names, but it's always useful to label these up so it makes it a little bit easier for us to see when we're looking in the project itself. So we probably just need to have a little bit of a page refresh in a minute, and that will actually show all of those when they've actually completely synchronized together. So let's hop back to the Ruijie project. We can see that some of these are still waiting. We've got the green dots appear on the left-hand side, so we could choose any of them. I've just gone to the house. Obviously, the first one that we paired up was with the milking shed. You'll see this information down at the bottom. This will start to populate. The Ruijie Portal is about 10 minutes behind everything else that's going on, so you do need to allow it time to catch up. You can see here, if we go into some of the configuration, we've got options to change some of that. At the start, I would leave it as its defaults. As the other bridges add, you can see we had a drop down list there, and we can choose and see the speed. We can drop down here and maybe choose to have a look at, say, one of the other ones from the list. Obviously, just quickly show you that screen again, which I'll show you on this next one a little bit more. So we can maybe choose the warehouse here. This is showing us our link, our current speed. You can see 360 megasecond is what it is. Now it's obviously very close to it, expect it to be. The same with the one for Mum and Dad's. This is again collecting these stats over time, so you can actually see the performance of these devices, but at least gives you an idea of what it can see as data transferring across them. So that's why it's really useful to see that in the Ruijie Portal itself in the cloud, and not have to go into eWeb here. We do obviously have a lot more information with inside eWeb, but this is something we now had to deliberately do, whereas the Ruijie Cloud, the project that we've gone into there, is something that you can refer to easily on your mobile phone, and we can just get some basic stats, but eWeb will give us a little bit more of a drill down if we need it.
Great, so we've been able to complete our magic 3 buildings. We've got our milking shed, we've got Mum and Dad's house, and we've got our warehouse over there, all connected together. You saw that on the computer. That's our point to multi-point, our main base station. One of those could be at 100 meters, one of those could be at 2 kilometers, as long as there's that clear line of sight that we were talking about. But that's great. We've got Wi-Fi there. We've been able to join it together. What can we do when we get to the other end? Well, we've got some options. So maybe we could just use a little router like this. This is a Ruijie EG105, gives you 4 ports of Ethernet, but at the same time it gives you Wi-Fi. This is going to put this in Mum and Dad's house, because that's not a huge house. I'm going to give them the Wi-Fi, and I can share my Starlink with them, or my other internet connections. Like I said, it's not just restricted to Starlink. So that's an option for a router down at that end. But maybe down at my milk shed, I actually want to have, it's quite a big barn that's there. I actually want to have outside Wi-Fi. If I'm going to put this inside and I've got metal walls, then I won't get Wi-Fi outside. So I would need to put 2 access points if I was doing that, something to give me Wi-Fi inside the shed, something to give me outside, but I'm more interested just in outside. So we're going to use something called an RAP, a Ruijie RAP 6262. This is an amazing outdoor access point. Now, it's all about the quality of the device that's connecting to this, but you'll probably get 150, maybe 200 meters. I've got some customers who've got way more than that, where there's no other interference around. So we're going to put this up. We're going to put it on the same stem there. If you were putting this up, this really wants to be at about 4 meters high, and really have a good line of sight around the area that you want to connect to it. This is for my devices like my mobile, or it's for my equipment that I'm using to check the milk levels, and all the valves, and some of my electrical stuff as well. Some of the stuff for the borehole that I've got for water pumps. So that's what I would use this for, to connect those devices together. So I want to give a good outside Wi-Fi. So this one's easy. Same principle as what I'm going to do with this. So I'm just going to show you how we're going to wire and connect this together, and how it then appears in the Ruijie app. I've already adopted this. Could do the same process. This can be done on the bench when you set all of this up. This is going to have a PoE injector to power it, an Ethernet cable to connect it to our setup over there. But on the bench, you could put that into a network switch or your router, scan the QR code on the bottom, and then you'll be able to have it in your Ruijie project with Wi-Fi ready to join. So let's head on down there, and let's get this all connected back up again. I've already put the basic mount on here. Again, I've just zip tied that. But let's just put this into place on here so it holds. Hopefully my zip ties won't break. Again, we're going to remember that we need to do a drip loop on this. This cable is probably better to tie nicely inside here and then bring down a separate drip loop. I'm going to use my outdoor cable. This is maybe going to run 20 meters back. There is a waterproof cap to go on here. If you can't put the cap on there, then do make sure you waterproof tape that so that there's no water coming back in there, because we're mixing data and power, so there is a small amount of voltage. So we're going to bring that back over to our setup over here. Got one power port left available over here. I'm just going to plug it in our PoE injector and get that going. Now, over here, and we might just bring the camera in close so we can actually have a little look. We have our cable going out to our RAP6262, which is going to go into our PoE port on our PoE injector. Hopefully you can see that. We now need to connect our data cable. But what are we going to connect it to, because the router isn't here? Well, this is our PoE injector that goes out to our bridge device up the top there, and it's got a spare port on here. So we're going to plug a cable into the LAN of this, and on our Ethernet adapter over here, our PoE adapter over here, we're going to plug into the LAN of this. So basically, if we follow the mechanism through, and we can see it in all the wire that I've got left, and maybe just do a wide shot here of what we've got. Our signals come from our base station up there, come to here, come down a nice long length of cable to this injector. We then come out of this injector into the other injector. It sounds complicated, but it's just really a simple circuit. And then this cable comes out to our access point over here. And this will have actually already started up. I can see there's some lights showing on the bottom. So as I can now probably just jump over onto my mobile phone, and let me just get some recording going on here. So you can see it's already online here. So let's just go into the device itself, and you can see it's online. You can see that it's broadcasting. We've already got a Wi-Fi set up on here, which we just did down in basic and Wi-Fi settings. Here it's called EW6000. If we have a little look, I've just got a password of the Tech Geeks. So if I just jump on now into settings, and I should in a moment, once this unit is boosted up, should actually see a Wi-Fi there called EW6000 to join. So let's just give that a moment, and then we should be able to join that Wi-Fi. And there we go. You can see the Wi-Fi's there joined it. If I now join to that Wi-Fi, all right. Now if we follow this through, my phone has joined this Wi-Fi. I've joined this Wi-Fi, which is connected to this outside access point. This access point is connected to this device. This device is connected back to our base station. There's no wires between this and the base station, but I'm now out at my milking shed and I've got Wi-Fi. I can now put another one of these down inside, or something like that EG105 router inside if I wanted basic Wi-Fi inside the shed as well. And I'm just going to then repeat this process with my parents' house and then with the warehouse. And then those can be set up at whatever distance, and as long as they're in a 120-degree view of our main base station, we now have a point-to-point wireless network working. So I know quite a lot to take in there, but hopefully you found it useful. What have we done? We've used a Starlink, but could be any internet service provider with a spare Ethernet port. We have connected up to our base station up here, which was a Ruijie EST450. We have then connected that down to my milking shed using an EST330. Down at the milking shed, we wanted outside Wi-Fi, so we added in an RAP6262. And now we've got our first link that could be even a couple of kilometers away with clear line of sight. And we had Wi-Fi, and I showed you joining the Wi-Fi at that remote site. We've then got a EST350G. I used one from a 2-pack, so if you buy a 2-pack, you could split both of those, put one in each location that you wanted. Remember, as long as they're within 120 degrees of this EST450, you should be all good. And I was then going to connect this EG105 as an indoor router to my mum and dad's house so they can have Wi-Fi down there. We then did a longer distance one here with a Air Metro 460. G, that's the one that we fitted over that side there. These can go a good few extra kilometers, and that I took down to the warehouse, and I'll take an Ethernet cable out just to a simple computer that I've got put there. So that's really how we create this point to multi-point with Ruijie equipment. Hopefully I've shown you the basic configs that are there as well. And hopefully that's given you some ideas of how maybe you could join properties together cost effectively on your farm, on your factory site, or even on your acreage. Why don't you head on over to our YouTube channel? Got plenty more how-to guides, how to set up wireless mesh, how to do a point-to-point with Ruijie equipment as well. So I hope you find some of those useful. Why don't you subscribe and stay up to date?